Welcome again to this channel, Agilah wa Agilah. And today I want us to talk about judgment. So the question is there judgment? Is God going to judge us, or is God going to judge the world? Is God serious when he says there is judgment? And actually, is it written anywhere that God is going to judge this world? Having asked ourselves these questions, and I believe many people do ask themselves that how can God be so cruel to punish people? And some will ask, how about people that died long time ago without even knowing there is a God? And some will ask, how about the young babies who are just born innocently and they die maybe from diseases or from other natural causes? And some will ask, how about people that die in calamity or in war, or people that are killed, or people that are murdered? How will God judge them? So with all these questions, human beings, we've arrived at a crossroad. We don't know whether God is really serious that is going to judge the world, or we should just live knowing that probably there is no judgment. But to help us understand this, I want us to look at what the Bible really says, or what has already happened before in the Bible. And the best place to look at will be in the book of Genesis, just from chapter 1 and 2 there. And I will just pick a specific verses in that chapter 2 of Genesis. I will read number 17. Says, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you will eat from it, you will certainly die. We all can remember these words. These words were given to Adam first, and then it was also given to Adam and Eve, that you can eat of all the fruits in the Garden of Eden, but the fruit that comes from the tree that is in the center of the garden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it. And he told them, the day you eat of it, you shall certainly die. So, just after that, like in chapter number 3, verse number 3, we get an encounter between Eve and the serpent. And this is the reply that Eve replied to Satan after Satan asked her or questioned her about what God has said. But God did say, that's how she replied, you must not eat from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it or you will die. So she was very correct, because she was really quoting the words that God really said. But after that, the serpent or the evil one challenged her. And then after that, she gave in to that. And then we can clearly see that in verse number 6, when it's written, when the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. So here we have a situation where we only have two people in the world, and these people are created in the image of God. And so there are only two, and they have been given an instruction here that if you eat of the tree, thou shalt die. If you eat of the fruit from that tree, thou shalt die. So we believe, or we think that if really God will be serious, after these people ate the tree, then for sure there'll be nothing else remaining of man. So what happens when they ate the fruit? So God mercifully, he executed his judgment, and he drove man out of the Garden of Eden to live out of God's presence. So man experienced a separation from God from that time, and then he now had to toil, to work hard, to have pain, and also to die. And then we will see there in the Bible recorded how many people had to die because of that particular instructions. So another fundamental story that we can look at is the story of Noah. The story of Noah is found in Genesis chapter 7, verse 12 to 23, thereabout. Here we see God, because of the evil that had increased in the world, God instructing one man by the name Noah to build an ark. And Noah, as he was building the ark, God clearly told him that there will be rain, and the rain will fill the whole world, which was a little bit far-stretched because nobody has seen such a rain. So when Noah was building the ark, he was telling the people that let's do it because there is going to be rain. But of course, man being man, they started questioning just as we question today. Man started questioning and giving false hope. And man said that there is no amount of rain that will fill up to the topmost tree, or on the mountains or on the rooftops. And so as Noah continued to build the ark, the people continued to weigh in whether Noah was serious or whether such a thing was going to happen. We all know what happened. Finally, rains came. It rained heavily upon the earth, and the water filled the tallest building. It filled the tallest tree. It filled the tallest mountain. It means that everyone died in the water. All living creatures that walk on the surface of the earth or fly on the surface of the earth, all of them died, except those that were in the ark, and except Noah, his wife, his three sons, and their wives. A total of 8 people were saved from that calamity. So you will expect God to say, no, I cannot do this. The people have refused. Let me just leave them alone. And if you look at that story, you realize that people were living during Noah's times. They had dreams also. We have babies. We had babies. We have orphans. We have people that are living with the disabilities. We had sick people. We had innocent people that really didn't know what Noah was saying, or they couldn't understand what Noah was saying. They did not have the grasp to understand what Noah was saying, because maybe some of them were just babies, little children. Some of them were too old even to help Noah to construct the ark. Some of them were sick, so they couldn't help. Some of them had important assignments. Some women were pregnant. Some were going to give birth. Some were in labor wards. But when water came, everybody died. Everybody died. The sick, the old, the young, the pregnant, everyone died. Why? Because God means what He says. In the same, we can also look at another story, also still in that book of Genesis. We see also a story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom was a very flourishing country. It had a lot of resources. You remember when Abraham had a disagreement with his nephew Lot. Abraham asked Lot to choose a place where he can go. And when Lot looked out, he saw a green place, a fertile place, a flourishing place. And therefore he chose that land. So he went to stay there. It means it was a vibrant city. a city that was with the pleasure, a city that was excited. So and that was Sodom and Gomorrah, the regions of Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot went to stay there. We can have a look at the Sodom because of the reason to why Lot chose that place. And it came a time when God was not happy with Sodom and Gomorrah, and he wanted to destroy it. And so he warned Abraham that he's going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. So I believe there was a warning, and God looked around to see a righteous man in Sodom, but there was none. And I believe we had also young people in that city. We have pregnant women. We had crippled or people that are living with a disability. We had orphaned children. We had innocent people, literally. But when the fire came down on Sodom and Gomorrah, everybody died. Everybody died. Animals, people, young, old, sick, they all died. Why all this? Because God means what he says. And one last example, we will look at the book of in Exodus chapter 12 and verse number 29. Here we read an episode in Egypt where Moses had been tasked with the task of rescuing the children of Israel from Egypt to the promised land. And Pharaoh was a very difficult man. He couldn't allow them to go. So the final day, God instructs the Israeli people to smear blood on their doorpost, because that night the angel of death will visit the land of Egypt, and every house that does not have blood on their doorposts, the angel of death will go in, and every firstborn will be killed. And so, long story, but at the end of the day, the angel of the Lord went at that night. And I'm thinking that we had also young children that were firstborn. We have couples that were waiting to have a baby for a long time. Maybe they had just gotten a baby. We had a couple that had only one child in the family and have been trying to get another one. They couldn't. So we had innocent people there. We have innocent, like old people that are firstborn, that are just there, disabled people, people living with a disability that are just staying there, living there. But when the day of judgment came, they all died. Why? Because God means what he says. So let's not hide in our own imaginations that God will not carry out what he says. God does exactly what he says. If he says he's watching over his word to fulfill it, then he will certainly do that. So I believe that with this we can be able to know the God that we are dealing with, a God that is just, a God that keeps his word, a God that keeps his promises. So I believe when he says he's going to judge this world, he's going to judge this world. Join me again for part 2 of this teaching, and I believe we will have a better understanding of the judgment of God that is coming on this world. Thank you so much. May you remain blessed.